If you're struggling with drawing bodies in perspective, then let me show you things that will help you with it, and also let me show you how to draw a body in any angle you want. Okay, so first let's go to the first and the most important thing, that is perspective. So here's a couple of things that we need to actually know. So first of all, we have a horizon line, which is a line that is pretty much at a level of the viewer. So pretty much if you have a person here and here are the eyes, so this line, the horizon line, would be on the same level as the eyes. Obviously, sometimes it may be lower or higher. And then we have vanishing points, which are pretty much points that are on this horizon line. And from that line, we have straight lines that go from it in every direction. So for example, here we have one vanishing point, which goes in every angle, creating this grid, okay? But with one vanishing point, we have a 1-point perspective. So here, for example, you see that every line converges into that point. So for example, the line of this box here go straight into this vanishing point. Same here, same here, same here, and here. You see these lines here, boom, not this, boom, 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 and boom, and also boom. Okay, but now another thing to remember is whenever we have an object that is above the horizon line, we'll see the bottom of it, we'll see it from below. And the same with the object is below the horizon line, we'll see the top of the object. For example, here these red squares. Okay, but now we can add many more vanishing points, so we can add 2, which will create this 2-point perspective. So for example, here it's low res, but whatever, we have 1 point here, let's make it blue perhaps, 1 point here and 1 point here. And now we have the straight lines that are coming from these points in every direction, and it creates this grid that you can see here everywhere pretty much. And now if we will draw on this grid here, we can simply create some boxes that are in a perspective. And here the same thing. If we have our horizon line, if we have an object that is above the horizon line, we'll see the bottom of it. If we have an object below it, we see the top of it. Pretty simple, pretty easy. But also we can have a 3-point perspective where we have 2 points on the horizon line and 1 point somewhere either below the horizon line or above. So for example, here we see that we have another point which creates this another lines. Here, boom, it would shoot something like that, obviously. And now we can draw another boxes using these lines here. So for example, you see here, this goes like that, here goes like that, and we just draw on these lines here. So we have sides of our box. Now from this line to this, you can draw another line here, obviously. So from this to that, from this to that, from this to that, from this to that, from this to that. And you see that we have a box here in 3-point perspective. Same thing here, below we can see the top, above we see the bottom. And obviously there's many more perspective. There's a fisheye perspective where we have like 5 points and there's like an oval. Yeah, we have like 4 we can do, so we can add maybe 1 more here. This would create things that look like a pyramid here. Also, when talking about perspective, you see this thing here. If something is above horizon and below, we'll see the top or the bottom. But we can do the same with the object. For example, if we have, let's say, a cylinder in like this perspective here, okay, now we see that we see the bottom of it, so it's probably higher than the horizon line. But now here we can use wrapping lines. So pretty much we want to do the same thing. So we see the top or the bottom, but just put it into cross sections of objects. So for example, we can imagine that we split this cylinder in, let's say, half, and we'll get this, and there would be like a dotted line behind it. Okay, it will be something like that. And because of that, it shows us where this object is compared to horizon line, which these lines go point up, which means that the horizon line is below it. Now, if we have had another object, let's say something like this, let's make it more clean, like that, boom, boom. And we add another wrapping line. So basically a line that goes around the form. And we see that this line points down. Okay, so it means that the object is below the horizon line, because here we would see the top of the object, and here we wouldn't see the top of the object here if we wrap lines around the form of the object. Okay, so here we see the top, but we don't see the bottom. Here we see the bottom, but we don't see the top. And now it's great whenever you want to draw a pose, because for example here, what it does, it basically makes something that, for example, here we have an arm, and now the arm has these wrapping lines here. So it pretty much shows that the view is from below, and it's really great to showing the perspective. Same here, you can see that the knee is above the horizon line. Same with the leg here. Okay, boom, boom. It's basically the cross section of the object. Same here. And it's also great because whenever you have a head, for example, from above, you would have this line here. We see that the eye line here is also pointing up. Let's take another brush here, boom, pointing up. Now, if we had a head, pick the same color, that is pointing down like this, let's super simple one. We see that this points down, just makes the angle from below. We'll basically see this head from above, which makes it that we see this head from above, so the angle is from above. So, for example, here you can see the same thing, boom, same thing, same. And it's pretty much the thing that we need to remember. Every cross section will have the line pointing up, the curve. Here also, torso. For example, here where we have a view from above, we can see that now this will point down. Here, same here, same here, same here, same here, same here, here, here. So here it points up, here points down, depending if it's above horizon line or below horizon line. Obviously, we can have something that pretty much part of the body would be below the horizon line and part above it. So pretty much some parts would be pointing down and some up, and some would be just a straight line. It would look probably something like that. So for example, here you would see the bottom of this one. Here you would see the top of this one. So pretty much horizon line would be something like that. Boom, boom, boom. And also if you want my brushes, they are for free in the description below. And with them you'll get 30 art tips that will help you improve your art in 30 days. Now let's go quickly to the next part, which is about landmarks. So here we have a couple of things. First we need to know the landmarks. So what are the landmarks? So landmarks are pretty much like masses on the body. So for example, a head can be a landmark, and for me it is. Use it as a landmark. Then we have shoulders, head, chest, like that, let's say, boom, hips. Obviously these balls here, knees, ankles, elbows, hands. And yeah, and also the navel and the middle of the torso. It's really great to showing the direction that the body is pointing. So for example, if the middle of the torso, okay, the navel here, the belly button, is closer to one side, it means that it's tilted this side, rotated to this side. So when we know the landmarks, and there's many more, we can do like sides of the rib cage, and also do like these here, the collarbones, the ears, everything. But these are super simple, and with them you can just connect them and see that you have a simple body, something like that. And there would be feet, which are also a landmark. Boom. So yeah, what it does is basically with that you can measure things, and it's really useful when you draw a body in perspective. So for example, first you measure proportions. So first I always start by observing the upper body to the lower body. So for example, here we obviously see that the upper body is much bigger than the lower body, than the legs, okay? For example, here we would have something like 50-50. So this would be pretty much the same. Obviously on this reference it's not. But whenever I draw, I just tend to do my bodies the same size. So upper and lower body the same. For example, here we can still see that upper body is a little bit bigger than the lower body. It just means that we see it from above. And same if the lower body would be bigger. Then it just means that, for example, here we see that the upper body is smaller than the lower body. We see it from below. Here we see that the upper body would be bigger. So it's from above. Pretty simple. But here, not only I just check proportions, I also measure landmarks and observe them. So for example, I observe the angles and relationships between the landmarks. So for example, let's say we have an elbow. So I'll try and spot where the other elbow is compared to this. They are on the horizontal line, okay? Same angle between knees, we have the same one. For example, we can also see how the shoulder aligns with hand, boom, where is the head compared to belly button. Basically you want to just observe which landmarks aligns with what landmark. For example, here we have an elbow that aligns with almost a knee, and with the foot, and also with the hip. So same with the shoulder, boom, goes down, aligns with this. Now I also see the angles between them. So for example, here's one elbow and here's other. Here's one knee, here's other, boom. So we have this angle here, this here, and also this angles here. Also, I always start with the hip and the shoulder line. For example, here would be something like that, boom, boom, and hip like that, boom, boom. Same here, boom, boom. It's more like that, boom. So just try and observe the angles between each landmark. For example, here you can see that this is higher than this one. For example, here would be our chest, our rib cage, and pretty much you can see that the elbow aligns with the bottom of rib cage. But also when drawing bodies in perspective, I always just take either like height from this, I put it somewhere else, I take the height of the head, I see, let's say, how long is this hand compared to it, and you can see that pretty much the top of the finger aligns with the height of the head from elbow to bottom of the finger. Now going back to, let's say, this one, here I see that this knee here aligns with this hand here. Now this aligns with an ankle here. This goes basically to head. Here we have one angle like that, boom, another like that, hip, hip. Now this goes in the same kind of line as these ones. Okay, it's just pretty good to see the alignments of all the body parts. For example, here, boom, here, boom. Now this head looks like this. This knee here with this one here. Okay, there's the body. Boom. Yeah, just whenever you draw, just try to observe the landmarks. It will make your drawing just look much closer to the reference. Next one is also super important, and here we basically want to simplify the body parts into basic shapes. So it will make it much easier to draw bodies in perspective. Here we have simple hips. You can even do simpler ones. What I do is a ball and just an underwear shape often. And then I just add some details like here, boom, 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 something like that, boom. Same here, we have this and then this here, boom, boom. And then I just build on top of that. I add some details. Yeah, for example, here we have a simple torso with like a line for the shoulders, then a simple hole for a neck, boom. Then we have this sternum here, some balls for the shoulders, trapezius muscle, then clavicles, collarbone, boom. And we have a simple, perhaps maybe two oval, two circular, boom. We have a simple rib cage. And here like a wrapping line, boom, same as here. A hand into like basic cylinders, boom, be like that. Another one, boom, boom. Here we have our wrapping lines. Okay, so in this part it's not really that complicated. You can pretty much just draw a simple body using a simple shapes. So something like that, boom, boom. Have this, boom, boom. Okay, a leg. Also check the proportions. So take this and that. So the middle of the leg would be something here. So these are too thick. Boom. Same here, like here, like that. Maybe too skinny. Boom, boom. Feet. One arm here, which is aligned with the bottom of the rib cage, so it would be somewhere here. This like that. This goes here, a little bit lower than this. Boom. And then with just a basic shapes, you can rotate it. You can make it pretty much into perspective. Just remembering wrapping lines and basically just drawing this object in 3D. So now let's go to the next quick one, which is about gestures. So using all of these things will help you a lot with drawing just bodies in perspective, but they might look stiff. And to avoid that, we want to use first some flow. We want to add some gestures to our drawing. You can see these have a lot of flow in them, like this, maybe like an S, boom, see here, another like that. There's like a zigzag, boom, and I'll do this. Yeah, we want to add this. And to do that, we can use a simple CSI lines. So these are curves and lines. And basically we can, whenever we draw, we can first, as I showed before, we can use a simple skeleton of the body to draw like more fluid, more bodies, poses that have rhythm to them. So for example, one curve here, you see that CSI, and basically we just use these curves here. So here would be C, another C, there's like a straight line, C, boom, we have something like that, then C for a leg, another one, and you just want to use this. So for example, here, you can see that we can do something like that, an S curve, obviously S is like that, but this does the same thing. For example, here, another one, it would be like a nice C curve, and here we see another S curve. So we want to add these. For example, here we see one, here we see an S curve, here is a C curve, obviously another C curve, then a straight line, like a curved, more C curve, here's straight line, something like that, boom, boom. Then we have another C curves, it would be another one, obviously the spine would be like an S curve here, connecting to the back of the head, so maybe it's something like that, boom. Same with this, we have a C curve here, and one C, and here basically a straight line. Here's one, boom. And now, to avoid things that look like a snowman, okay, what we want to do is, whenever you draw, let's say, arm, for example, you don't draw them like that, okay, boom, boom. So pretty much you want to avoid these. What we want to do is basically not only add some flow by switching these ones and making them flow into another one, also we can do something like that. One curve here, straight line here, okay? Then this flows like that, boom, and straight line here. Basically it creates some variety in the shapes. So one side straight, one curved. For example, here you can see slightly curved arm, straight line, slightly curved arm, straight line. And it adds just a lot of flow. For example, here, boom, straight line, almost. Obviously, straight line, boom, boom, mostly a little bit curved. This goes here, like that, boom, another one, boom, another one. And you see that you have this flow. Same here, for example, this, boom, then this, boom. Obviously here, boom, the head that basically goes like that. And you have this amazing flow, boom, boom, boom. So we want that in our drawings. For example, here we have a face here, neck that goes like that, boom, body like this, okay? Here we have a nice curve, boom. Here we have another one, like a more sharper turn. Obviously, here we have something like that, boom. Now this like that, this goes here, and it points us here. Basically, we want to use these curves, CSI, to guide our viewers' eye. So now let's go and basically draw a pose in perspective. So here we have an angle from below. So here what I always do is see the ratio between upper body and the lower body, and we see that the lower body is bigger, which means that we see the pose from below. Obviously we can have like a kneeling pose or lying down pose, but this is a standing one. So pretty much we can just mark some lines. So this will be the top and this bottom. So we again want to make the lower body bigger. So measure with fingers, boom, it is kind of bigger. So now we want to take a head. Let's change the brush. Here we have a head. So now we see that here we have an angle like that for our shoulders. But first also let's add this torso C-line. So quick neck and a torso C-line. Now we can add the angle of the shoulder. Okay, now we have here hips, be something like that. Have the same angle, but that more. So more chill one, boom. Even this, and make it actually this a little bit more extreme, so something like that, boom. Now let's add simple shapes for the torso. A shoulder here, another shoulder that is hidden behind the body. Okay, we can add simple head here, like that. Okay, we have a simple head, that would be collarbone, but pointing up, we can actually make it more curved. Okay, boom. Now let's add some basic hips. We can do something like that. We see that this line here is straight. We can do the same. Now we can see if it aligns, and it is, well, it is kind of curved. Now compared to here, we see that the lower torso is a little bit bigger. For example, put this here like that, boom, boom. Okay, this like that. Make a navel, belly button here. Okay, this here, it would be this, boom. Now let's go for the legs, or first just add some basic rib cage, some wrapping lines. Okay, now let's add some legs. A little bit, the knees are a little bit above the middle one. Make it a little bit like that to match drawing the reference. Boom. Here would be one leg, a foot. Here we have like a that shape. Boom. A knee. Okay, another one like that. Boom. Now this goes a little bit behind this leg and goes like that here, boom, and do this. This I think will need some adjustments here. So we want to push this here like that, make this here. For here, let's actually make the lower body a little bit longer. Boom. Now we can also add this tilt here. Okay, here's some quick details like this. Boom. Okay, now here would be an arm. You can see that this aligns with it, so here would be like that. Now this aligns, so now this goes like that. Boom. Have an end here, whatever it can be, doesn't have to be really detailed. Boom. Fingers. Okay, a wrist here like that, some stick. Boom. Now this go like that, so this is actually above this. Here we have on the same level. Let's just push this up, keep the curve nicely. Boom. This actually rests a little bit higher, something like this here like that. Curve here. Boom. Straight line like that. Okay, and a hand here like this. And obviously flip to see the pose. Okay, boom, boom. Maybe we can push this a little bit more like this. Let's actually erase the bottom a little bit. Okay, boom. Just add foot here. Erase it to add some more form. Okay, we can add this for the knee here. It would be something like that. Boom, boom. Okay, now the other one. So here we have the wrapping lines that just tells us that this is above. Another one can add some chest like this here. Boom, boom, boom. But let's flip it, push this a little bit like that. Okay, well, we can add a simple overlap here. This perhaps a little bit better shape. So for example here, we can erase that and this, make it better. So that, boom, something like this. Okay, put this like here, boom, boom, make it like this. Okay, it's probably pushed a little bit bad. That, boom. Okay, so this maybe curve a little bit like that. Add this hand here. Basically, this is the middle. This, okay, just a simple landmarks. There would be overlap from this. Boom. Get a little bit like that. Here we have our wrapping lines. There we have our shoulder. Boom. Perhaps push this a little bit like that. Okay, here this. So now check the proportions. So measure the top of the bottom, same do here. And what I see that the legs are still too short. We need to push them a bit. Also, here was the knee. Okay, so the upper legs are right compared to the lower legs. Make it longer. Maybe push it a little bit like this. So also what we need to pay attention to is where does this align compared to other things. So for example, we can see that basically this knee here aligns somehow with our head. Okay, so for example, see here we have a knee and it aligns perfectly, which doesn't happen here. So we need to change it a little bit. We can add some details here. Pretty much we need to push the leg more towards here. Let's just take that a little bit like that. Now here it's a little bit too dark, so let's push this like that. So like this, here the wrapping line. Okay, we have our simple knee. Okay, boom, that. Add some details. Knee. Okay, perhaps there would be a straight line and then a curve here. Also this foot compared where is compared to other things, which pretty much we see that here, boom, oh, here, boom, it's not really that off, and yet here it is pretty off. So we need to fix that. Take this, bit like that, boom. Now also we probably need to make it a little bit bigger. Make it like that, boom. Now this one, we want to curve it a little bit more, like that. Okay, obviously flip it to see, just add some wrapping lines, show us, see the form. Okay, it would be a knee behind this, like this. It would be another leg, boom, which is a little bit too thick, whatever. Okay, here I want to show this, boom, ankle, this one like that. So here we have this ankle and this have this angle. Okay, so now the feet, this can be erased, boom, boom. Okay, this is probably too much extreme, boom, boom. Okay, now let's go to the other arm, which here we see this overlap here, but here we can see that this part goes in front of this. We need to add some basic T-lines. So let's go back to the view. We want to add curve here, boom, and we have this T-line here. Maybe add a little bit bicep, add this here, like that, okay. Add some ears. A quick tip, if we look from below the head, the ears will be below the eyes. And if we look from above, let's say like this, the ears will be somewhere here. Okay, so above this. So above, below. Okay, perhaps make it this. And also this angle here, we want to have the same one. So basically, whenever we draw things in perspective, we want to have an angles same in the same direction, show us the tilt of the body and everything. So it would be this, boom, boom. That we can always push this a little bit with our liquify tool. It would be another overlap here, boom, this. Okay, maybe this one is not that thick, so just add a little bit thickness to it. Okay, and yeah, now let's see, this is, here we have our belly button, which is in all right place, but still we need this bend to be correct. Okay, push it like that, goes here. Okay, now this doesn't need to be there. Okay, boom. Okay, this here, boom, this can be a little bit here. So for example, here we can go into a little bit more details like this here, boom, boom. It would be this, that, boom, boom. Okay, well, perhaps push this a little bit, see this, okay, like this. Here we have any, and obviously then, okay, so I think that it's a little bit too flat on this side. This might be like this. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect, obviously just a base on which we can then just go and refine it. Okay, or maybe this might be, okay, obviously here would be our eyebrow line like this, our nose, no, see the reference. Okay, nose is a little bit below the eye line. Okay, boom, boom. Okay, hair like this. Okay, so yeah, so here what we did is basically we just push this pose a little bit front, a little bit up heavy, whereas here it's like that, and here we have this. So we can actually change that by just moving some parts. Let's say just move a little bit this like that. Okay, then just push this like this. Okay, and it's much closer. Maybe push this a little bit here and this back. This maybe up like this. Maybe add some more volume here. Show the angles. Okay, let's fix this. It would be like a dip. Nice. Okay, here we have a simple pose in perspective. Obviously, using these things, you can do much more poses. And also, if you want to go a little bit more in depth, you can check out my Patreon where I have monthly tutorials. And then you can get just a new tutorial on how to draw bodies in perspective, where I just go a little bit more in depth and also with more examples. And now, if you're struggling with drawing simple bodies, then you can check out this video here. That will help you with that.